So my question for today is, has anyone defined the community, what a community means to them, and how they see the community and what they're trying to achieve with this community that they're trying to build?
Okay, yeah, thanks for that. A lot of a lot of good points there. Just to touch back on the earlier point around where was it? Finding reliable speakers in a venue. I think that even pre-blockchain, that's like a lot of meetups have that issue. If there's any like hot tips anyone has around A, finding speakers, and B, finding venues. I think we touched upon venues last call, but does anyone have a particular point they want to raise there?
I think we also discussed it in the Telegram group after the call. There were some ideas thrown around. Generally, if I remember right, projects that are working there, you can leverage on their sort of position. If you can talk to universities as well and sort of prove that you're not, one of those scammy meetups, but you're talking about real technical knowledge, then if you can get someone in the university to help sort of vouch for you and champion your cause, that can help you get free sort of not just venues, but also other resources as well, if the university is convinced.
Okay, great, thanks. Anyone else to add to that point?
Sure. I've also found that if looking for speakers specifically, it's great if people can show up to your actual meetup, but having speakers do a presentation remotely is often just as good, and sometimes you can get higher caliber people if they don't actually have to move and get to where you are. So what we're doing now.
Great, thanks.
I had some issues trying to find like the new startups in Copenhagen and have them present. I think we know most of the products have been around for a while, but all the new products arriving, we have a problem identifying them, and also like to see how we can get them to present. I don't know if anyone has experience with that.
Yep. Okay, then. Yeah, I'm not sure if anyone had a response to that.
Sorry, Truls, I didn't actually quite hear what you said. I think the.
Okay, so my problem is often to find the new projects in Copenhagen. So people working on new interesting projects and have them present in Copenhagen. That would be interesting. But I don't know. Often I'm a bit too late to find out where they are. So I would like to be better at like identifying new projects in Copenhagen, and I would like it if you have any ideas how you get the new projects to be present at your meetups.
Okay. Book, you've unmuted. Did you want to add to that?
No idea. Yes. Yeah, I've got an idea. I think we should have a list where people are traveling around the world for their days, and where they stop, come around to the local meetup and present. Enough people in the Ethereum community to do that.
So maybe everyone has a GPS tag on them.
Yep.
Okay. Yep, no, that's a good idea. And then, yeah.
Do you, maybe for your meetups, do you present predominantly just new projects that are happening in the space, or alternative topics? What we often do is we'll throw in random topics like what was the one that we recently had? I don't know, throw in a meetup of different, I don't know, aspects, like what, Karen, I think you wanted to do one on wildlife at one point, and then there was a identity or on like different spheres of life that affects, we did one on gaming. So maybe you could just find different speakers within the same projects within Copenhagen to present on different topics entirely that are maybe relevant to them or relevant to the space that people would be interested in hearing on.
Yep. Okay, so I think, yeah, that's I'm going to, yeah, I guess touch back to Karen's point also on, and also touching on Trell's point around connecting the different types of people or finding those new products. But Karen, I guess to paraphrase the point around the different types of users that make up a community, it almost came across to me as like finding personas of an application or of a product. You're sort of needing to understand the different personas that are attending and then finding the ways that they can interact. So one persona may be the startup, like someone is a startup person and they're already present. That's great. And maybe from Troll's point of view, it's about finding those startups and then inviting them in to the meetup. So maybe to bring it back to that point, Karen, around the different types of people, does anyone else want to share something around the types of people that attend a meetup? Like, I guess if I'm to use the word persona that attend?
There's two hands up there. I think it's Harith and Karen.
Sorry, my hand was actually raised for the earlier point about getting speakers. So just an idea. If it's about persona, I think this is probably obvious, but just to me, it's obvious ones are the technical people who want to talk about, like, go deep dive into technical topics, and the others would be like the very new people who still need to pick up on sort of basic fundamentals about blockchain. So those would be the two basic personas.
Okay. Anyone else on that one, Wayne?
No, but what I do want to maybe touch on is potentially the shift in meetups and where they're going. Obviously, last year and the years prior to, it was obviously focused on the fundamentals. And as the industries progressed and as everybody started to develop projects and become really immersed in what they're busy with, meetups are becoming a lot more specialized in their own right. And I was just wanting to see what everybody's vision is on where they see meetups going this year, how relevant the current meetup format is, whether they'd like to see it go, and is there a place for them both, the new and the old meetups, to kind of go through the motion? I don't know if anybody has a point on that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Troll.
Yeah. Yeah, I also think that the meetups are changing a bit. Like, so we have many different specialized meetups appearing. But I think people, they often come to the big meetups just to network. So people come from all kinds of backgrounds and at all kinds of stages within the blockchain space, and they just come like to meet people and network. So I don't know, what we're trying to change is that we want to have this like town hall event style instead, like probably going to be 4 times a year. So just try to gather everybody within the industry together. And there will probably be a few keynotes, not that much, and then a bar where people can hang out and talk. Probably some smaller sessions where people can do different kind of discussions. But it'll be more just about bringing people together, and then we just try to have the community run minimal smaller meetups. I think that's at least how we want to try to do it. So the folks would just have a few times a year, everybody would come together to network, and then people can meet in smaller meetups just to get into a topic.
Yeah, and that was something we spoke about recently with some other cities in Australia, to say like what possible online meetup formats might work. And two of the ideas were, one is more like a town hall format where maybe one meetup is leading and that's live streamed to several other meetups in parallel, and that's just the traditional sort of streaming, sort of one-way maybe format, and perhaps questions can filter up. But then the other idea was if each meetup is running in parallel and is something more like a workshop, then maybe they can sort of both be, well, multiple meetups can be dialed in equally at the same time. And I'd be interested to hear more about those online formats as well. But, Ryan? Sorry, go on, Harith.
Sorry, I just because it was essentially same two ideas that I had in mind. Was literally, or I was just thinking of was if we talk about new kinds of meetups and online meetups, especially with topics that are fresh, like the in thing right now. We could have, whether or not it's feasible, we could have like a online meetup where it might be physical in one place, but all of us in various locations can have a stream of that meetup, and we can all ask questions using something like Slido, where the moderator will ask questions from everyone who's tuning in. Whether or not it can be feasible with time zones and stuff like that, but I think that would be kind of interesting, and we can kind of help show our local communities that there are all these other communities out there, and they probably have the same questions that we all have. On the second idea was on the basically what Trolls was saying just now about sort of regular meetups. I met someone from Coin Center a couple months ago, and he said in Chiang Mai, what they do is, and I found it quite interesting, is every week they have this meetup where it's the same place but divided into two different sort of sections. One section is where the experienced people are, and they talk about, they pick a topic that's relevant and they just have a discussion around that. And at the same time, they have a beginner section where people who have never joined the meetup or who don't know much about blockchain have a blockchain 101. So it's kind of run in parallel, and at the end of each session, everybody kind of gets together and just networks with each other. So I thought that was kind of an interesting format, and it doesn't require getting speakers from projects to keep running. Just thought to share.
Excellent. And Ryan?
So just to add to that, one thing I have been toying with is with the Ethereum magicians, they have a focus on different protocols around how to have meetings and things like that, things from fishbowl style presentations. But one thing I am starting to think about when it comes to what kind of meetups people want to attend is how to make them a bit more consumable. So if like as Heather was saying, having meetups that are connected. So one meetup I went to where it was a general developers meetup, they had it in Joburg, Johannesburg, and Cape Town at the same time. And one presentation was streamed to the Johannesburg one from Cape Town, and then the next one from Cape Town to Johannesburg. So what could be quite interesting is to have, depending on your time zone, multiple meetups, and we just sync presentations from different locations, but each region gets a slot, so to speak. So what gets interesting there is that because it's streaming, that doesn't necessarily just leave you to whatever's available in your region or those regions at all. You could have people stream in from a different time zone into those three meetups all at the same time. That's very attractive for the speaker because it's quite a wide audience, but it also lets it's easier for us because then we don't need to worry about what location this person may or may not be in. So leveraging a lot more online streaming things might be like the next step in growing the meetup groups at a much more significant rate, because the biggest problem is trying to get people to come back. So they come once, they think they get what they so then they might not come for another month, or they might skip one or two because they sort of got the gist of it. But if there's this weird regional thing, so they have no concept of what they might be seeing, that's also another alluring thing that might help with the retention. But yeah, just thoughts I've been having.
No, I really like that idea, actually, the having one present and then having the others take turns like in presenting in that same thing but at different time slots. Regarding the randomness of it, like I think that's good for some, but then on the flip side, I've heard of people sort of making complaints when they found that a meetup would go a bit over the place as well. So that will be, again, there's maybe attributes of people at a meetup that will favor different formats. So maybe if one is said to be this part is structured and this part is unstructured, and it's very clear that if they chime in on the second half, they're going to get a mixed bag, then that could work too. Awesome. Yep. Daniel?
Yeah, I wanted just to say, like, typically for the meetups that we organized, especially with students, they were much more introductory, and like often actually would include stuff that are not limited to only blockchain, and would like explore how things can tie into blockchain. And then very often what would happen is that when people kind of fall deeper down the rabbit hole, we would refer them to Boki's workshop, or to some people really like EOS or whatever, right? But point is that like having this spectrum of meetup options is actually a good thing. And as a community of organizers in that matter, the ability to kind of share the community growth is something that I found quite useful. Like quite a lot of people that went to a few of the introductory meetups and then they really were more keen to like go to the advanced stuff, ended up as regulars in Boki's workshop from our sessions. So yeah, like I think that having this reference, like having this like working together as teams, like this is in the same city, but even in different regions. So like some people travel. So having this place to share more when like you know about a friend or a project that goes to a region, refer to each other, and like by that basically create this more tightly connected community, I think would be cool.
Yeah, and yeah, is there any other responses to that?
I think Mike's got his hand up there.
Yep, Mike.
Yeah, sorry. Well, I just want to touch on another point, and then I guess it's in relation with, you know, potentially streaming between different meetups, but just, you know, to gauge from the different organizers, if anybody gets into the habit of either recording or broadcasting their meetups, because I think it could do a great service to, you know, there's the last one we held went long. It was 3 hours. It was great. There's a lot of people in attendance, but you know, I felt like there was something that could have been captured, which didn't. And so if people got into the habit of recording and broadcasting these events, that would probably go to great lengths to you know, bring more people in and bring people from, you know, completely different parts of the world. I've watched videos from meetups that happen in Amsterdam and you know, wherever, all over the world. So it's probably something to you know, ponder and try and do more of.
Yeah. Okay. And yeah, I guess that's touching to the developer community. Oh, we got sorry, Florian.
Yeah, just was you saying that, Mike? I think we would also have a lot more reach if, like, let's say we do, or let's say some of us commit to streaming our meetups. We organize Curation Markets meetups in Cape Town, and we do other meetups. You guys do other meetups. Whichever meetups are being streamed, if we as organizers could get together and advertise those on our individual pages as well, I think there's a lot of exposure to local communities, because it's very difficult for people to be aware of this happening. If we actually all advertise that, that would be a good way of gaining traction on this, and we could just experiment with it and see what happens.
Yeah, I guess at this point the community is small enough that we could have that network. We'll have, I guess, a couple of more minutes on this, and then maybe we'll allow some time for the sort of the use cases and products. But yeah, Trolls.
Yeah, I just thought maybe we should try to organize a day for a future meetup, maybe like 2 months time or something, where we could actually try to coordinate. So we would know that this time we're going to have a meetup, then we can try to find some speakers and then try to live stream them, like try to do this thing together as an experiment, see how it works. So find some speakers which could be run at the same time at multiple locations, and then we just use Slido as, I don't know who suggested that, but it would be an interesting experiment at least to see how it works.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, like I said, there's a few different cities in Sydney where we're hoping to start that pretty soon. And maybe that's something, Karen, maybe you're already doing in terms of the communities you manage, whether they're all dialing in at the same time. But yeah, in the last little moment, shall we start to talk about, say, the, engagement with dApps and sort of more towards the user cases. And maybe there are people who come along to a meetup with a specific app focus or a specific problem they want solved, and they feel the blockchain solves that. What are people's experiences in those kind of real world product, I guess, attendees that come, or that element of the community? Yeah, anyone want to add the types of people that they've had who bring their projects along?
I touched on kickbacks earlier. Makoto's project. It's great for meetups. It's sort of tailored for that, right? The premise is that people kind of stake an amount of ETH, and if they don't show up, they lose it, and it gets redistributed to those who did attend. But going back on a topic that we were discussing in the first conversation last month about sponsors to meetups, because we've had, this is like the second meetup that we've tried to get people to sign on to kickbacks, sort of unsuccessfully, just because the onboarding process is slow. People don't really understand how to interact with MetaMask or whatever the case may be, or a mobile wallet. We were thinking to get the sponsor to not just provide pizza, but basically provide kind of an empty slot. If you're familiar with how kickback works, the sponsor would basically attend, put up some ether, but be marked absent purposely, right? Such that the sponsor's ether would get redistributed to the participants, and maybe use that as, you know, basically giving away some free ether to get people to join in. We haven't tried it yet, but if the next meetup is unsuccessful in getting people to sign in through kickbacks, that's probably what we're going to do, and could be like a sort of a hack into getting people to jump on.
Yeah.
So from our side, Proto, we are actually building something designed specifically for community growth. So to that end, we have worked with and looked into kickback quite a bit. The one thing we did find, especially when trying to, as you said, with onboarding users, is for the most part, if you require your users to either have to install something or need to learn something, then it becomes quite a hindrance. And generally just the notion of a minor economic gain and RSVPing sometimes is more of a barrier of entry than a strong incentive. So what we're trying to look into is a different sort of model for RSVPing for meetups. So the idea that a community would have membership, and that membership allows you certain utilities, and by retaining good behavior, you retain the membership that gives you utility. The only thing that it always comes down to is, how is the user going to do this? So there's a lot that I think will come out of this year is how new people to the blockchain space are being introduced to it. So what kind of wallets are they using? Is app A that they're talking to using Wallet Connect, for example, or is it something like universal login, or are they coming for the allure of like some altruistic project, or are they being brought in by good UX? And I think we might have more of the latter than last year, but it's quite a fundamental question when you start being able to put these explicit restrictions on things like RSVPing that we normally can't do. And so one thing that from our side that I would want to ask if anyone runs into these things is, what are your new members actually, how did they get incorporated? And there's always a roadblock. Every one of us has run into a problem with, I want to do this thing, but then it's a black hole of, I don't know quite how. I think I might have.
If I could, add to that, that I don't, like when I look at, say, products in this space, I always just think back, we're not the first to be building a digital product. We're not the first to be building an app. And if there's I always just sort of measure against just a regular app. Like if I think of, an iOS app that's hosted on Amazon, if that is low friction, that's what's going to be used. If it's just a tab in a browser and they go to that website and serve it, then that's what customers will do. It's just like that the lowest barrier to entry is unfortunately what most users will be doing. To some extent, we may be able to rely on an intrinsic motivation to be in this space. So then that will give us a little bit of credit. They'll do 2 button clicks rather than just bailing after one. But yeah, in app development, you're shaving clicks. And like anyone who's done web development as well, it's just those very low barriers to entry. So that's kind of the harsh sort of metric I try to look at. And the product I'm working in at the moment, it's the same thing. We've got end users who are not, the last 10 minutes. So end users who are not necessarily even tech savvy, and it's just got to be easy for them. And I do look forward to the day when the blockchain solution is simply under the hood and is the best fit solution to the problem space, but the consumer doesn't even have to worry about it. That's sort of an ideal I look towards and hope to get to. Arthur?
Yeah, we at the end of last year, we had a conference in Minsk. We did something like, it was quite geeky because we did adapt actually a smart contract to rule the conference. We have it open source. I will send the link a little bit later. Yeah, we did some, actually guys who organized this conference is our friends. It's Cyber Academy, and they did smart contract backend and put it into production. Well, and say to everybody, come on guys, use the Miner wallet to do it. Yeah, I call them, we built a front end for it, like for few clicks using MetaMask, you can join the conference, you can join a speaker, you can submit your to slot your speech, and distribute after the conference. There is a formal to distribute revenue between organizers and speakers. It's like as idea is good, but it's quite geeky because if you're interested, we can I can share it and show in the details later. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. No one else has the hand up for that. It might be something we'll have to maybe go into deeper in the chat around the type of people that come to meetups that have a specific product and to what extent do the organizers play in either helping them find the customers or find the developers. I'm not sure. But we'll see how that is. I'm just trying to see, was there any other points? I think Karen, did your hand pop up a moment before or regarding use cases?
No, I was trying to mute myself, sorry.
Okay, then.
If I can just bring up something quick.
Harith?
Yeah, so on the use cases, what from the few months experience we've had, there are some people who want to do it, but it kind of on both sides there is a sort of a gauging of interest. So for them, they want to find someone to do something cool because they heard about blockchain, but there's also a validation that we and them need to check on whether it's really worthwhile or it's just blockchain for the sake of blockchain. And the other end is the community members, they're all busy doing all of their different projects, so we don't really have the time to spend to look into their use case. So a thought I just had was if we can build these sort of communities, especially with students or fresh grads, those could be things that they could work on, and it could be potentially ideas for them to start their next startup.
Yeah, okay. And Florian, you had your hand up?
Yeah, just my last thought on the use cases. On the one hand, there are use cases like Kickback or Protea, which would benefit the actual meetup and the organizing of the meetup. But I also think it would be interesting for meetups to think of themselves as a space to really get people to interact hands-on with other use cases, with dApps, and see it as an experimentation space where people can come together, and maybe there are some people who already are more actively familiar with a certain dApp that they see a lot of value in, even at this stage where there's a lot of friction, and to provide a space for those people to educate others on how to use that or why to use that, and to actually start interacting rather than just presenting on it and educating. Maybe having a meetup where people get together specifically to, to check out this dApp or check out multiple dApps. So think almost like a marketplace. That's kind of what I'm thinking there.
Yeah, we would definitely be interested in doing like user testing at meetups or something with our dApp, getting people coming to the meetups to use new features or test new features, and then being there to collect feedback. I think that'd be very valuable.
Yeah, excellent. With the just to add to the code together format that I've run before, where it's around 4 hours or so of just developer focus. But the intent was that prior to that, you would have maybe, say, again, 4 hours of product focus, and that could come around to say, here's a dApp, here's some maybe people using it. But yeah, I think it can tie into that, where there was going to be then an hour's overlap or sometime overlapping, where effectively the requirements come in or requirements are amended to say, hey, wouldn't it be great if the dApp did this, or if this was easier? And then the developers sort of take over, like there's a bit of a handover, and then developers take over and code onwards to perhaps add that feature. So that was something that would tie the user element of saying feedback on a dApp into the developer session. And it will become a long day, but maybe it's split over a couple of days. But yeah, I think that's a valuable part as well. Okay. Got another few more minutes left. Were there any other points, I guess, any concluding points people wanted to add? Or perhaps, points I want to focus on for next time? Yep, Charles?
No, sorry. I just thought we should also look at finding a date for the next time, for the next event. I don't know if that's now.
Yep, that's a good idea. Yeah, I'm not sure the best way to do this, actually.
We could probably do it on Telegram too, and just put it around the poll. That'll be fun.
Can I see it?
Yep.
Hi, Bok, yeah?
Yeah.
Just now you're talking about sponsorship. Is it always necessary to have sponsorship for the meetups?
I'm seeing some shaking heads as well there. Ryan, did you want to?
Because we run the meetups in Sydney without sponsorship, and then don't have to worry about having to put up signs and, pledging allegiance to some company who's providing the funds. And we just do it by donations.
Yep, Ryan?
So in my experience, we've had meetups where it's just casual. We rock up for drinks. Like the only thing we provide is a book table and a cup and some good conversation. Depending on your audience, you might not need sponsorship. Like it's a little better for new users if they say non-technical users. Generally, they prefer having a bit more of a catered experience. If you have technical guys or developers, they're fine with just meeting up at a bar to talk code because they have context. So what's nice with having a sponsored event is that it just adds a better impression to start building context up with the onboarding process. But it really just depends on your meetup. If you guys, you cannot, but donations preferably. We all don't like having overlords, but whatever works.
Okay. You got your hand raised there, Karen?
Yes, so with my experience is we host our meetups in the evening, so after people come back from work. So it was a whole thing of people come back from work, they're tired, they're hungry. We don't want them to come and sit there for 2 hours presenting and networking, and they're super hungry and stuff like that. So what we usually do is we provide like catering, maybe pizza and a few drinks, so that people can, it also helps with the networking. So if there's drinks there, people can network and stay a bit longer. And if there's food, rather than after someone speaks, they just rush home to go eat. So in terms of sponsorship, it depends. So maybe let's say you're expecting 100 people. As a startup, I don't think it's feasible to host meetups and then take out a lot of money each and every meetup. So it's just trying to find someone that might assist with catering and those kind of things. So it's also hard on our side finding sponsors that are willing to sponsor us for food. But I think I'd like to hear the concept of the donations and how that works, because our meetups are free to the community, so we don't charge anyone for those. So I'd really like to hear how the donations actually work.
All right. I guess if we're okay to go a bit over time. Sorry, Daniel, you're unmuted. Did you have something you wanted to add there?
Yeah, I think that the concept, the way that Boki, you run it is really awesome. Like having a hat. It's just a bit more like you need to be adding a bit of like commitment from the participants. I think that, like, from my experience, students particularly find it, they're more stretched financially. For them, like paying a $10 is like more than that, and just logistically it's a bit more involved than getting a sponsor. Of course, like there's always a need to balance between, on the one hand, giving that sponsor a stage and stuff, on the other hand, like making sure that it's not just the complete only like sales page and stuff. So I think that, like, if possible, of course, better like donations, but otherwise, yeah, like I personally actually don't find that model so bad.
Yep.
Sponsorship.
And Karen, just to answer your question and maybe adding to what you said, Daniel, the way I've seen it work at Boki's is that you'll get people that will donate more, like the donations are written as sort of optional in a way to say, look, this is kind of would be nice, more if you can, don't worry if you can't, is kind of how it's communicated on the meetup page. So it's sort of it's quite empowering for attendees to be able to pay what they can, and if they can't, like as a student wouldn't be able to, it just passes by them. But if they're working, I've seen people put $50 in, and that's just what they want to do. It makes them feel good to contribute back. So it's a nice way of enabling that. But yeah, if one is able to find a sponsor with few strings, that's perhaps easier as well. Okay, I guess if there's no other points, we'll. Was it Wayne taking notes, I think, and we'll share the notes around after this. Sorry, Troll, did you?
No, it was me making the notes, I guess.
Sorry. Okay. Great, thank you. And awesome. Thank you very much, everyone. I think it's been really productive, and yeah, we've got a lot of points covered there. So